I'm Melissa.
And I'm Jesse. And
this is the Reimagine Success Podcast.
We're a husband and wife team who want to make a difference.
Keeping up with the Joneses can be exhausting, and we can often lose sight of what we are accomplishing.
We're here to reimagine success and to celebrate the steps it takes us to get there.
Big or small, we want to showcase success stories that will inspire, motivate, and help propel you towards greatness in your own life.
So come reimagine success with us, and let's go on this journey together.
Welcome back to another Thursday edition of Reimagine Success.
I hope everybody's had a great start to their new year. I know that we have. We've been extremely productive this year so far, already accumulating a little success going forward.
Exactly. And I hope that everyone had a happy New Year's and you have a successful 2022 ahead of you.
Today on the show, we've got an amazing guest. Her name is Brooke Salazar, and she's a national keynote speaker and lecturer. Brooke offers practical strategies and solutions to address complex enterprise challenges. Brooke is a longtime human resources professional that combined her passion for diversity, equity, and inclusion with her passion for law that culminated in becoming a practicing associate general counsel and DEI officer at Apex Benefits Group. She has over 15 years of rich progressive experience as a trusted subject matter expert in resolving and mitigating complex employee relations matters. From in-house roles, she has served a wide range of employers, from large complex multinationals to growing entrepreneurial businesses. This experience shaped how she approaches each client individually to provide solutions that fit their culture and size. Additionally, her career has been built upon developing active business partnerships with senior executive leadership in the strategic section and tactical execution of HRIS systems, retirement plans, both qualified and non-qualified, and various talent strategies that integrate human capital success into strategic business results. As an in-house counsel and in her consulting practice, she brings the benefit of practical experience with a focus on how colleagues can be accomplices in the success of diverse colleagues. She attended McKinney School of Law, and she received her bachelor's degree from Indiana University, and she currently resides in Carmel, Indiana. Now, I just said a lot of things that I don't know a lot about, and so luckily, Brooke can fill us in. So welcome, Brooke, first of all.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. And thanks, everybody, for hanging in there with me with that very long intro that I gave them. So I really appreciate you sticking in with me. Those are a lot of words to say that I'm very passionate about helping people on a daily basis. I think what's really neat about what I do is, as opposed to if I was a straight attorney in a firm, I get to make an impact every day. So I get to help out CEOs and HR leadership to say, hey, what can we do? And how can we look at it from a business strategic point of view? But how can we help folks as well? And that's why I do what I do. And you don't see me at a firm where it could take years for something to pay off on a very small scale. But being able to work with business leaders and HR folks, I get to talk to them about how things like paid family leave can actually help in the strategic growth of their business.
That's awesome, because we are all about helping people and, helping people to find success. And it sounds like you're right on that same page with us.
Absolutely. And I think as an attorney, when we go through law school, we're taught, we're all striving for that big law experience. And I think when my parents found out I was going to law school, they expected some kind of like Suits, like that show Suits,
Right.
Or like the Good Wife.
Yes, you're not out there going, I want the truth, and somebody's on the other side going, you can't handle the truth.
No, not at all. I don't wear a fancy suit. In fact, today I wore dock shoes to work. And one of my good friends' sons, he is in law school, and he couldn't believe I was an attorney when I met him. And I said, is it because I don't have a blazer on? Like, you need a blazer? I'm not super sure. And he said, no, you have that in-house glow. So I was like, so I'm not super stressed checking my phone all the time. And I have to say, it's not my skincare regime. It really is an in-house glow, because when we talk about reimagining success, it's not that big law of life. It's really a life with balance.
Right.
And so I really strive to maintain balance in my life. Sometimes I succeed and sometimes I don't. I'm super interested to hear how you guys have gotten so much done here on January 6th. I don't know what's going on over there, but I need some secrets to that. But I think that being able to identify what your big rocks are, what's most important to you, and then build your life around that has really led me down a very strategic path.
Well, speaking of the path, how did you know that you wanted to be a lawyer or go into the law field?
Well, I always wanted to be a lawyer. Always. And when I came out of undergrad, it was the Great Recession. And so I wanted to be a criminal lawyer, which if you've ever seen any kind of procedural drama, right, you know that criminal law is not the one you achieve balance in. That's not a thing there, folks. And so I went to work as a paralegal for death penalty cases. And I really enjoyed that, but then it got to the point that it was too much. So I said, today's the day I'm going to sell out, because I really thought going corporate meant you sold out, because when you're young, that's what corporate means to you.
Right. Yeah. We all think that.
That's right. And so I told the lawyers I worked for, I was like, hey, this is the day I sold out. I really want to find an area in a corporation that I get to help people, and not after years and years of trying. And so I was fortunate enough to go to work as a paralegal, and I supported the human resources department, and it was amazing. And part of why I'm so excited to be able to do this podcast is so law students and other folks can listen and say, okay, for those people that, are diverse or don't come from a certain background, how do you get opportunities? And how I got opportunities in HR was I literally just stalked the human resources vice president. He would go out to smoke, I would go with him. Like, I literally stalked him into submission, and I hung around, and I did have a background in litigation, so that helped with document production and understanding laws and understanding all of that employment stuff. And I frankly always enjoyed hearing myself talk. And so training and lecturing became a supernatural fit for me. And by stalking that VP of HR into submission, I was able to do some really cool Title VII, like employment law, equal opportunity training for managers. And then it just kind of rolled forward from there. And I think looking from far away, I always thought, well, once you're a manager, you know how to work with people, right?
Right.
You know how to lead people like that. But that's not a thing.
Right.
I've met a lot of managers, and you can have a born leader, but no one is a born manager. No one is born with knowledge of EEO laws and the Americans with Disabilities Act law and age discrimination law. Like, no one's born with that. And so to be able to talk to them about, this is what these laws mean, and this is how we can be empathetic, right? Because I like to teach about the law, but I also like to push in there like burnout, mental health, how we can be empathetic and ask our employees, how can I help? Because I think we forget sometimes as leaders, and even as, I'm not a parent, I'm an auntie. And so it's easy for aunties to forget. I can ask my nieces and nephew, what would you guys like to do but we don't have to do it. And I think sometimes that's what we forget with employees, that they know what they do best and they know what they do every day. So ask them, how can I help you? How can I support you? And you don't have to do it, but at least having that knowledge. And I will say 8 times out of 10, it's something so simple that you can absolutely do it. And that's kind of where it started. And so my career in HR progressed, and I was like, hey, great news. I get to do all the things that lawyers get to do, except I don't have to draft. And I don't have to have over $100,000 in average law school debt, because I get to be in HR and I get to impact people every day. This is awesome. And I was at one organization, and they were talking about legal department strategy. I said, oh, because I had moved my way, just like my goal was, from paralegal to HR manager, etc. And I said, no, this is what it needs to look like. And this is how you manage your outside counsel. And this is how you manage this budget. And this is how you manage risk. And he said, well, can't you do all those things for us? And I said, I don't have a bar card. I cannot do that for you. And he said, well, can you get one?
I mean, it's so easy, right?
Right.
Like,
and I was like out of a Cracker Jack box? Like, you know what I'm saying, right? Like, it's, and he said, no, we would support you. Let's talk about what that means. And so that's really what got me on the path. And God helped me, at 34, I went to law school.
Oh, wow.
Wow, that's amazing.
I know. I don't look anywhere near 34 because it's the in-house glow.
It's the in-house glow. Yes.
But you can believe it.
You guys, if you got to see her, she does have that in-house glow.
She's so happy with her career choice that has taken years off of her life. I mean, off of her face.
That's
the rest of us.
I was going to say years off of her life is probably one way to put it. But I did, and I went to law school at night, and I HR managed teams of people during the day. And that's how I got through law school, because I knew I would tell anyone going to law school, and I say this to everyone, figure out a way you're going to pay for it. And so I knew once I got out at 39, I wasn't going to be able to do what I wanted to do with a ton of debt hanging over my head. And I'm just going to be really honest, because we're in the tree of trust, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
I knew I was never going to be in that top 5, top 10 to go into big law and make the kind of suits money that my parents thought I was going to make. And so I thought, well, I need to be able to do something during the day that supplements my resume for when I get out. And I found Apex Benefits. They've been amazing. I was able to study for the bar, take the bar, pass the bar, work with them. And it's been so great. And that's what I would say is, to any law school student on a non-traditional path, number one, if you're an evening school student, God love you. And keep going, unless you don't, you figure out it's not the path for you, because the law is a profession with one of the highest rates of alcoholism, divorce, addiction. And this was the best advice that I ever got. And it was from one of my dear friends that actually wrote one of my letters of recommendation for law school. And he said, if you can do anything else and be happy, do that thing and don't go to law school.
Oh, wow.
Oh, nice.
That's a real good encouragement.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I told him, hey, guess what? I got accepted. He said, I'm sorry. Because it's hard work, and it's like nothing you've ever experienced. But I am super happy to be on this side of the table. But I definitely wasn't a traditional student. I would talk about the Golden Girls. I would talk about cultural references that 26-year-olds have no idea what I was talking about. but that is okay. But I was definitely a non-traditional student for sure.
That's awesome. One of the things that struck me when you and I talked before the podcast was your passion for diversity and inclusion, and just how much you want to take a stand for, helping those underdogs, the people that are kind of looked over many times, to have their voice heard and to be able to succeed. And you're not just self-focused in success, which I loved. You're about helping others to succeed. And that's kind of where we're at in life, is we want to make sure that our lives help propel other people to succeed in what they're doing. So what does that look like on a day-to-day basis for you? Like what practical things are you doing to help those that maybe are discriminated against or put down because of their race, sexual orientation, age, whatever it may be, that gender? There's so many things that are keeping people lower these days, and we're trying to make our world better by being more inclusive and making sure that those voices are heard. So what are you able to do in your realm to help that?
Well, I just did a really amazing series with 4 leaders, I would say national leaders, but they happen to be all located in Indianapolis, Indiana, that I like practical things. So I am basically like an 87-year-old British man after World War II. Like I don't like kumbaya. I want to know things that I can do right now. I don't need 50,000 different executives to buy into what I want to do. I want to be able to do them right now. And so Apex was amazing. ApexBG.com. That's ApexBG.com. Go out there, take a peek at these podcasts and interviews, because we did one with the director of diversity for the Colts. We did one with a nationally renowned leader in mentorship, Jimmy McMillan, who is Chief Diversity Officer for Penske Entertainment, which Penske, the racing team, and Elias Serrano, who is a dear friend of mine, who is CEO of MSIL, which
I spoke to him. He should be coming on the podcast soon.
Yay! Okay, he is amazing. I'm a big fan. That makes my heart sing. But what are practical things we can do, and what are things we can do every day to help be accomplices? So Brian Richardson Jr., who's the director of diversity for the Colts, he talked to me, and we talk about this on the podcast, about moving past allyship and being an accomplice, like having skin in the game, right? And so how can we use our voice to sponsor those folks that are overlooked, right? And so not everybody is cut out to be a mentor. It's just not a thing. You have to give hard news. You have to build the relationship, which means being vulnerable, talking about your failures. A lot of folks don't, I don't know if you guys know this, but a lot of folks don't like to talk about their failures.
Right. A lot of people don't.
No, love to.
Yeah. I mean, failure means you're trying.
Failure means you're trying, and you're building a relationship that's based in authenticity. And let's be honest, who just shuts down when all they're talking to you about is their successes? Like, my eyes kind of glaze over. And in our, social media curated kind of society now, we all want to talk about those times that we worked really hard and we got it. Well, sometimes that's wonderful, and I'm super excited for those folks that do. But some folks need a little more sponsorship to get to the table, so they can get the opportunity to work really hard and achieve.
Right.
And so one of the things that I do, I work with CEOs. I work at Apex. I'm the diversity officer there. But when I think about, and this is one of those things when I talked about practicality, is amplification tips. So how do we sponsor and amplify folks that may be overlooked? And one of the ways to do that is, we know the halo effect, right?
Right.
So the halo effect is we identify something in someone and then we make assumptions based on what we identify that means X, Y, and Z. So I'll be vulnerable. I tend to get along really well with people from small towns because I am from a small town. I grew up in Greenfield, Indiana, between two cornfields. And I will walk into a room and I will literally strike up a conversation, and that person will have grown up on a gravel road just like I did. And with the halo effect, what that tells us is that because they grew up on a gravel road, I'm going to associate, well, they're like me. They're success driven. They're this, they're that, which may not be the case.
Right.
Right.
So it's really important to sponsor folks that don't look like us, that don't come from our background, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when we're sponsoring them, we want to make sure that we're being empathetic. And this is one of the things I talk about in my presentation on cross-cultural mentorship is when there were 4 of us, and I don't know, like a PC way to say it, but like we didn't have a lot of money growing up. I mean, there were 4 of us. Like there was a $5, $5.50, $7 like admission to go somewhere on a school trip. Like you didn't want to ask our parents for it. You just didn't.
I totally get that. I had my first job at 13 to pay for a trip to go somewhere with my school. I can't even remember where. And Melissa did too, right?
Yep.
Exactly. And sometimes you can get to a certain level within an organization, and those folks haven't had that experience. Right. And so I think all experiences are wonderful, but teaching sometimes that how do we open the door to other folks' experiences before we flood them with our experiences? So I'm here to tell you what my Saturday looked like was definitely not the Saturday of a mom.
Right.
Of a mom, of a single dad. It absolutely wasn't. And when my friends that are parents say, what'd you do on the weekend? I was like, why don't you tell me about your weekend first? And then I'll decide what to tell you about my weekend. Because my weekend is going to look like some really good brunch, a workout, a nap, playing with my dogs, and then probably bed by 9:30. I mean, but, you know, I know a lot of moms of young toddlers, and they would not care to hear that some days, which I can't blame them. Although I would tell them that doesn't happen when you just have dogs. But so when you're working and you're trying to be an accomplice, right? You have skin in the game, and you ask who you're trying to sponsor, how was your weekend? Ask them first, right? Ask them first. Invite people to the meeting that don't look like you. So give people the opportunities for assignments that don't look like you. I would also say, this is a tip I learned from Obama 1, his administration. So we know that he had a lot of women in his administration, but they were finding that when they went to meetings, one of them would say something, and then no one was paying attention. And then I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but about 7 to 8 minutes later, a man would say the same thing. It would be like, oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, that's happened to me.
When I ask people in my presentations, I'm like, raise your hand. Like, yeah. So
I'm sure.
It is a common denominator. But what they did, which I thought was really interesting, was they started repeating what the first person said. So it would be like, I really liked Brooke's idea X. And then if it still wasn't acknowledged, another person would go, I really liked what Brooke said earlier, until it became very apparent. And that's how they helped culturally shift the paradigm.
Right.
And so when we talk about sponsorship, when we talk about being an accomplice, if someone is in a meeting and they're being overlooked and they say something explicit, they're not all great ideas.
Right.
Like they're not all great ideas. However, people still need to be acknowledged because you're paying them for their compensation for all of their experiences, all of their thoughts. And if you're not going to acknowledge what that is, you're only getting 60% of your compensation rate, right? And the next idea they have may be amazing.
And then they won't share it because they're scared to speak up because they were not heard before.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of those things that I do in my life is if I see that, which you do in corporate America,
Mm-hmm.
that is exactly what I do. And I think that to me, those are things we do every day and we incorporate every single day that aren't listen, my mother she was about like born maybe 6 or 7 years too late to be a hippie, but she loved Bobby Kennedy. And so I was very much raised by a Bobby Kennedy stan. And so it's not Bobby Kennedy level, right? So it's not a huge thing, but it's a huge thing to that person.
Right.
To be heard, to be seen,
yes,
to be acknowledged.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Lately, we've been watching, our shows that we keep up with, and it seems like it's been a theme on a lot of shows that we've been watching is the inequality between men and women, and how women's voices are often heard less, or white people versus minorities, or straight people versus non-straight people. And it's easy for me, being a white cisgendered straight man, to go somewhere and get my ideas heard. And I hate that other people don't have that voice. And I'm with you. Like, I want to give voices to those that don't have voices. I want to amplify the people that are being held down by other people, and get those voices heard, because so many unbelievable things have come from the unconventional, and I did air quotes for those of you that aren't watching me live right now, which is everybody, the unconventional areas that people are like, oh, they can't give anything good because they're XYZ. Everybody has brilliance in them, and that brilliance needs to be tapped into and unlocked and given the opportunity to be brought to the surface. And I love what you do, because I champion that. We champion that as a podcast, as a couple. We're always looking for ways to champion those that don't necessarily have as loud of a voice.
Right, exactly.
Well, I think, I talk about this too, and the Supreme Court talks about it. There was a really interesting study done on how many times the female justices were interrupted. And it was interrupted, and it was a significant amount more than the men.
Wow.
And so when I am with professional women and we're giving these talks and men, and I ask about the interruption, because I thought once I became an attorney, they would give me my bar card, they would give me my blazer, and I would never be interrupted again. And so one of the things I really try to do, and when I am blessed enough to be around other powerful women, because men don't seem to have this problem, is I ask, when you're consistently interrupted, what do you say? What do you do? How do you handle that? Because I also think that I like to think that everyone in their heart, like, no one wants to discriminate. That is what I like to think. And I hope. And so my hope is once you point it out, hey, did you realize that you're consistently interrupting me? Number one, that usually, I'll tell you right now, it'll stop the behavior.
Right.
But sometimes they really don't, and they don't realize that they're interrupting you. And so when I present on diversity and inclusion, diversity is great, right? Diversity is being invited to the dance. Inclusion is feeling safe enough to dance. That's Verna Myers.
Love that.
Love that. And when you invite folks to dance, you have to be willing to give them that felt security that we are here with you to ensure that you can be yourself and you can bring all of those experiences to the floor. And that is what I strive to do. And I also like to do bystander sentences for when we see one of our colleagues being made to feel uncomfortable for whatever reason, whether that's harassment, or whatever that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe that, and maybe my family comes from the South, so maybe it's just like that Alabama Southern. I know that we all want to make everybody feel comfortable, but giving people sentences to say, hey, you need to stop, or that's not okay. Or I've even heard drop a book to get the behaviors to stop.
Right.
And that is where I really try to train, is giving folks sentences, number one, to defend themselves, because we're so worried, was I too mean?
Mm-hmm.
Did I seem rude? And then I wanted to say something, I just didn't know what to say.
Right.
And so being able to script those talking points can really help folks feel like they have those go-tos, so they don't need to fumble their words or search for what to say or what feels like the nice thing to say.
Right, exactly. And, a lot of times that's also building confidence, not only, with your friends, but also in the work environment. Because once you build confidence with someone saying that, hey, you can speak, you can use your voice, you can, comment, and we're going to listen to you and we're going to hear you and we're going to give you feedback. Like maybe that wasn't the brightest idea, but we can brainstorm on that and create something that is even better as a group among us. And then they're going to keep giving their ideas, and they're going to keep, doing that over and over, because that's going to create a habit, and that's going to change their fearfulness for not speaking up.
One of my colleagues who I adore, she talks about felt security.
Mm-hmm.
So how we make people feel secure. So we don't just tell them we're a DEI company or we believe in the EEO statement. How do we make them feel that thing? How do we make them feel like they can bring their whole selves to work? And those are what we just talked about. Those are pillars on how to do that. And from the sentences, the bystander sentences, to the amplification tips, those are pillars on felt security.
Mm-hmm.
And how because it's not just when we talk about DEI, sometimes I think people talk about, like, we forget, like, past the recruiting pipeline. How do we retain the diverse talent we have?
Right.
Mm-hmm. And if somebody doesn't feel comfortable enough to be their whole selves at work, it's like wearing a shoe that's uncomfortable. Yes, you can do it. We've all done it. We can do it. But the first chance we get to take that shoe off, we absolutely will.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think it goes back to your analogy earlier about the dance. We can invite people to dance and we can tell them, hey, you have all the freedom to dance. But if we're standing against the wall just with our arms crossed and not dancing ourselves and showing them that we are going to dance with them, then they're not going to believe us that they actually have the freedom to dance.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think that's a really good point. And you could build that trust through vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
right? Through being yourself. I said my family is from the South. They're from Alabama and Southern Indiana, which Southern Indiana, we're like a state unto ourselves. But I say lawyer because I can say lawyer. Like if I'm trying to be fancy, I'll say lawyer. And one of my friends said, are you worried about how lawyer makes you sound? And I said, no, because that's who I am. And if I'm authentic to myself, then other folks can be authentic to themselves.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right. That's perfectly said.
So that's one of those things that I think I love, that point about we all have to dance, and we all have to ensure that we're creating a space where we have felt security, that we can all be vulnerable. And that is not through curated Instagram influencer minutia. That is through true, authentic, sincere relationships and how we build that into our culture.
And it's about speaking up, even if it's uncomfortable for you. Because if, as much as it's uncomfortable for you to speak up, think about the person that is being discriminated against and how uncomfortable it is for them. And we know that it's wrong and we're advocating for the right thing to happen. But if we don't use our voices to speak up when there's an injustice being happening in front of us, then the people who are seeing the injustices or being treated unfairly, rather, they're not going to believe us when we say, oh yeah, just use these sentences if they've never heard us use them to defend them or to defend other people, and we just let things go under the rug.
Absolutely. And sometimes I think when we're talking about discrimination, it's important to talk about the EEOC. So like I said, I like to believe the best in everybody. And I've never worked in environments where there is blatant, terrible discrimination. I've been very blessed. However, if you would like to read, I would encourage folks that are interested, go out to the EEOC website and look at some of their published settlements. And you're going to see some things in there that will curl your hair. And if you would have asked me before I got involved with the EEOC, I would have said, oh, I don't know that there's blatant discrimination, terrible discrimination, maybe disparate impact. And part of that was due to my age, but I started becoming involved and paying attention to the EEOC, and some of it will absolutely, you'll be shocked what folks face. And again, to your point, I just think that's the privilege that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Well, what specific success stories do you have recently that you would like to share and celebrate, Brooke?
Oh, like I said, I love to work with people one-on-one. I presented at the American Society of Pharmacy Lawyers, which is a mouthful to say. And there are folks there that are lawyers and PharmDs, which are doctors of pharmacy and pharmacists. And I was a part of the main presentation slate. So everyone had to attend. And we talked, and it was about 300 people. And I got kind of nervous because it wasn't my usual DEI crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Usually my DEI crowd chooses to come to my presentations. And this one was, you were forced to. And I think that when folks are forced to do things, sometimes their ears can close down.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so I was a little nervous. So I did my presentation. I always say that if they're laughing, they're listening. Mm-hmm. So I shared some of my own experiences, which are ridiculous and funny because I'm absurd. And if there's a way to, spill something on yourself or trip, I will find it. And so I shared, again, some of my personal failures. And I asked people to raise their hands, and no one was really raising their hands. And, part of talking about authenticity and vulnerability, one of my questions is raise your hand if you've never made a mistake so bad that they weren't going to escort you from the building or ask you to leave school. Everybody's made that mistake, folks.
Yeah.
Everybody at some point in their career, their studenthood, has made a mistake so terrible that you're like, well, this is it.
Right.
I'm not super sure where I go from here. And no one raised their hand. Mm-hmm. And then I asked the question about, being interrupted. No one raised their hand.
Should have been
And
like, is there an alien behind you guys? Like,
right. And
something silly.
I mean, I thought, oh man, but they were interacting with me. So I thought, well, they are listening. They just don't like what they're hearing. So there's that. And then afterwards, I got done, and I will say I had about 20 different women come up to me and say, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've been interrupted. I've been overlooked. There were 4 or 5 men that came up as well, talked to me about, how can we be accomplices? I really liked your amplification tips. Do you have any more? I wrote them down. And I was just so excited by that, because I thought, all it takes is one person to make the difference in one person's life. Because let's be honest, when you make a difference in my life, you're not just making a difference in my life. You're making a difference in my family's life,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're making a difference in an opportunity I can give someone else. And that, to me, and that paying it forward is so big that I get really excited about that. So I was really excited that I made real connections during that presentation. And I was really excited that folks felt comfortable enough with me to come up and have sincere and authentic conversations.
That's awesome. And I think that that's going to be a lot of people today listening, whatever day that they're listening on, they will hear this and they might evaluate their decisions and how they treat people in the workplace, or not in the workplace, just in public, in wherever, in their homes. A lot of wives don't have a voice with their husbands and are afraid to speak up. And so I hope today that all of our listeners are hearing what Brooke has to say and hearing about how you can make a change in your life and the way that you treat others, and that you can start to bring positivity and opportunity to those who may not have had it in the past. So
Absolutely. We could all make a difference. We could all make a difference in our community, and I think making a difference starts at home as well.
yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. Well, Brooke, we have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with you. It's given us both a lot of stuff to think about, and just I'm sure it's inspired our listeners. And so, why don't you real quick give everybody an idea of how they could get in touch with you, if you've got any social media or any ways they could contact you. I know you're active on LinkedIn, but any other places that they could find you.
LinkedIn is the best place to find me. I am super active out there. I don't like to be. This may shock you. Social media is not my thing. However, as our marketing director says, like, you can't do what I do and no one knows where to find you.
Right.
I had to rock 40 paces to the left of mile marker 4. So it's Brooke Salazar on LinkedIn.com. And then I'm always available via email, which is, B Salazar, that's BSALAZ as in zoo, AR at Apex, APEXBG.com. And I love to chat with folks and have authentic conversations. So I would love to hear from you. And if you have feedback on the series of my diversity series on lessons earned, I would love for you guys to go out and watch them or really listen to them, and give me the feedback, unless it has to do with makeup or hair. And then you should know that my mom's already given me all that feedback. And
where can they find those videos?
They can find those on apexbg.com. So that's Apex, APEX, B as in boy, G as in go.com.
Awesome.
And Mom has already commented on things in my face. So feel free to keep that feedback yourself.
Well, you have been so great, Brooke, and I know our listeners have received so much knowledge from you about how to make a difference in their own personal life. And that's what we're here for.
I am just humbled to be asked to be on here. So thank you so much. I've listened to your other guests, and it is a prestigious club. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
I
love that.
Thank you.
That just made me smile from ear to ear.
Well, Brooke, we hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch up with you soon.
All right, bye. Wow, Brooke was so amazing.
Yes, she was. I know that that topic is something that everybody really needs to hear.
And it is very controversial because a lot of people are afraid to talk about stuff like this, and it really needs to be heard and talked about.
Yeah, it's really sad because I think people are afraid to speak up about it because they don't want to be treated like those that they feel bad for being treated that way. And so therefore they keep their voices down, and the injustice just keeps on happening when we could all start speaking up and saying we've had enough of this and it's time to make real change.
Right. It's honestly, it's about creating a new habit, and the new habit needs to be out of love, out of respect, and about being completely unified.
Absolutely. So, yeah, Brooke was amazing, and we've got some more amazing guests coming up in the next couple of weeks. So make sure you're tuning in every week to the Reimagine Success podcast.
And with that, this is a Creative Global Entertainment production. Did you get motivated? Do you feel inspired?
Don't worry about keeping up with the Joneses anymore, and don't forget to celebrate your successes every single day. Thank you for taking this journey with us.
Follow us at Facebook and Instagram at Reimagine Success Pod. Email us at reimaginesuccesspod@gmail.com and let us know what your successes are.
New episodes every Thursday at reimaginesuccesspod.com.
So let's change our mindsets and reimagine success.